There is a tale told of a sacred wood, a forest found on no map that has no name. Legend speaks of a door in the wood, beyond which lie unspeakable treasures. But in whispers passed down through generations, it is claimed that no man has ever opened the door, for it is said that the door is locked by ancient law.
This does not look familiar.
Yeah, maybe we should get out the GPS and see where we are.
I get it. I screwed up. How long are you gonna punish me for it?
It was a joke.
Wait.
What is it?
Oh, never mind. I thought I heard someone laughing.
Faith.
What?
Faith.
What? Looks locked. Strange.
Whoa.
What do you make of it?
I want in that door.
All ye who wish to enter herein be warned. One arrow released true, and finding the perfect mark shall the lock sever.
An arrow released true.
You think this is the perfect mark? What do you think it means?
Move to the side, Faith.
Adam,
What?
what do you think it means, be warned? Come on, Adam. I don't want to be lost out here after dark.
The sun will be down quicker than you expect. You don't have a first aid kit, do you? There's help on the other side of the door, though.
You know this door? What is it? Is it magic?
It's better than magic. It's real.
I need to see what's in there.
Yes, you do. More than you know.
What are you talking about?
Let the archer beware, for those who miss, a curse satisfied only by blood.
Come on, Faith, let's get out of here and go find a doctor. A doctor will not be able to heal you.
What's wrong with him? What does it mean, a curse?
Come on, Faith, you're getting worked up over some crackpot spewing nonsense in the woods. There is no curse. Whether you believe it or not makes no difference.
You saw what I saw? There's something special about that door. Tell me you don't feel it.
Then I'll keep shooting until I hit it.
Adam, don't. Adam!
Have you got a better idea? It won't help.
What won't help?
He's already missed.
But if I hit it...
The law is not unclear.
Please? There has to be a way, please. Adam!
What?
You were healed. Please, Mister, I know you can help us.
He does not want it.
Adam! There must be something.
Please.
The law must be fulfilled. You missed the target and the law requires blood. I can't change that.
I haven't missed yet.
Faith, no.
I haven't missed yet. I could open it.
The requirement is the same. Perfection or blood.
Faith, if you miss...
Please. I can't do it.
Do you trust me?
Yes.
Close your eyes. When I tell you to, release. Let go.
What did you do?
Take my hand.
Come on.
Take it!
I'll join you later.
Thank you.
You're free now. Go. And live. In the book, it says, "What the law could not do, weak as it was through the flesh, God did, sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh as an offering for sin. He condemned sin in the flesh, so that the requirement of the law might be fulfilled in us, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit."
Morning, I want you to turn to John chapter 11, verses 25 and 26. It says this, it says that I am the resurrection and the life, and he who believes in me will live even though he dies. Seems like foolish words, doesn't it? How is that even possible? He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. And the question to us this morning is, do you believe this? Because he took your place. If you start reading in the beginning of this book, you can see amazing things happen. All of a sudden, there's moons and stars and an earth and animals and all of those different things that God creates and forms. But the best thing that He creates is you. As He pulls that man out of the earth, and then as He takes from the man and He creates a woman. And now we're living life at this point. And you ask Adam and Eve, do you believe in Him? And they're going to say yes. Because they said, I've walked with Him and I've talked with Him, and He would breathe life into my body. And yes, I believe He is the resurrection. He is the truth. He is the life. And nobody comes to the Father except through Jesus. So if you ask Adam and Eve, do they believe? The answer is automatically yes. But we also know that a curse comes upon their life when an enemy comes in, Satan himself, and says, you know, you can know just as much as this God knows. You can know good and you can know evil as well. And all you've got to do is what? Just take of the tree. The only thing in the garden that God says, you shouldn't mess with this. You don't want to know about this. But yet the enemy comes in and says, maybe you do want to know. Maybe you would like to know more about. Maybe he's keeping the best things from you. And I can picture it. You can see it too. Adam and Eve look at each other like you would maybe look at your spouse, or maybe you'd look at somebody that you trust, and you would say, do you think we should do that? Do you think we should? I mean, he told us not to. Well, it probably couldn't hurt anything, right? And that's where it all starts to come down. Sin's not my fault. I'll just tell you that right now. It is not my fault that I sin. It's somebody else's fault. Adam and Eve should have never, ever went against God and did something that He asked them not to do. They should have known better than that. They should have understood that when they partook, when they took of that bad things were going to happen. It's not going to be good. And yet, Adam and Eve find themselves in this predicament and saying, I think I will, and they did. And I would not want to have been Adam and Eve in the next 24 hours to come. Because here comes God calling out their name. Where are you at? I'm here to be with you. Where are you at? And they say, we can't come out because we're naked. And even though God already knows what's taking place, even though God is all-knowing, He poses the question to them, how do you know you're naked? And I don't know if you can feel it this morning, but if God can ache, it would be at that moment. It would probably make us feel like somebody took a fist and just knocked the breath out of us. How do you know? How do you know you're naked? And then this is where we start trying to explain it all, right? Well, what can I say here? What can I say here? There was this being. He came into the garden. He said that we could do this. We know it. So that's how you know. You let somebody come in. You let somebody fool you about life. And now you know not only about the good, because you knew that before. You knew how good it was here. You knew how great it was here. I've created this whole thing for you, and all of a sudden you let somebody else come in and you let them talk you into doing something that you knew was wrong. And now you know you're naked. Because not only do you know good, but you know evil too. Because you know that, as much as it breaks my heart, you can't stay here any longer. You can't be here any longer. And as you continue to read through Genesis, it talks about all the things that takes place now because of just that action that Adam and Eve. It's their fault. It's somebody else's fault. I didn't know this was going to happen. If I knew this was going to happen, I would have never, ever done it. I promise you, if I would have known the consequences, I would have left it alone. But now, you can't make me leave this place. And God tells them, you can't stay here anymore. From now on, you're going to have to work, Adam. If you want to eat, it's not free anymore. But this curse comes on their life, and from now on, they have to till the ground. They have to put the seed in. They've got to water it and watch it grow. And after all of that takes place, then they can eat. You've got to hunt it down. You've got to capture it. You've got to kill it. The blood has to be shed, and then you can cook it. Then you will eat. But because of the curse that comes on their life, no longer is it given to you anymore. I was reading in Genesis, and if you look at chapter 22, it starts telling this story about a man named Abraham. And in that story, he's asked to do something that's pretty great. Let's just read that. Let's just read that real quick together. Genesis chapter 22. It says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to Abraham, "Here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about." Then early the next morning, Abraham got up and he saddled his donkey. He took him with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. And when he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for a place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. And he said to his servant, "Stay here with the donkey while I go with the boy, or I go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." I want to stop there for just a second. The first thing that happens is Abraham's being tested by God. And he calls his name out and he says, "Here I am. I'm here." And so Abraham is listening to God. And he tells him that he wants him to do something. In that first part of that verse, it says, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah and sacrifice him." Because only the blood will suffice. We've got a place here where in the Old Testament, after the curse has been put on Adam and Eve, and after they move out of the place where they lived, something has to happen for there to be a bridge between the gap of man that has sinned and then God. And for whatever reason, God chooses sacrifice for blood to be shed. I didn't make it up. I'm not the one created it. If you've got a problem with it, you have to talk to God. I'm just telling you that's what this word says, and that's what I'm preaching this morning. There has to be something that comes in and bridges the gap between man and God. There has to be blood shed there. And so all of a sudden Abraham hears from God and he says, "I want you to take your only son, the only one you've got, the one that means everything to you, the one that you love so very much, and I want you to take him to the mountain that I tell you about, and I want you to sacrifice him there. Do you know what that means this morning? Let's just put it in just simple terms. I want you to take the son that you have, I want you to go to that mountain, I want you to lay him down, and I want you to kill him for me. You know what you would say, right? You know what I would say. I will not do that. No matter what, you cannot talk me into it, God. You cannot do anything that will change my mind. That is my son. And I will not. But there's something about Abraham's faith here that we really need to look at. Because he doesn't question God. Like, what are you doing? Why in the world would you ask me for the thing that I love the most? Abraham gathers the wood. Abraham gathers. I'm going to need water. That's what I'm going to need. John, can you get me some? I'm not going to make it through. Thanks. Abraham gathers the wood and everything that he needs to go sacrifice. He didn't question God. He had faith in him, saying that if God told me to do it, he must have a reason for that. Therefore, I'm going to gather the wood, and I'm going to take my son, and I'm going to go to the mountain. And I don't know what's going to happen there, but I know what God requires. He requires sacrifice and blood. You're a good man. No matter what your wife says, thanks. I just spilled that all over me. It's going good this morning. Thanks again. So anyway, he's there. He knows there's sacrifice that has to be made. I want to ask you this morning, how much faith do you have in God and trusting in him? That no matter what situations, no matter what area of life you set in this room today, that you have enough faith when God says, I want you to do this, that you can step back and you can say, I know that's God this morning. I know it's him. I know he's trying to do something through me. We've talked about that over the last couple of weeks. I know God wants me to do this. And then have enough faith to act upon that. What kind of faith do you have today? If God calls on you to do something miraculous, something great, are you still sitting back and waiting? Or are you jumping forward and saying, God, if you tell me to gather the wood, and you tell me to grab hold of the very thing that I love, we're going to start walking towards this mountain that you sent us to. And at some point along the way, you'll show us exactly what's going to happen. The very first thing today, I think if you're going to believe that he is the resurrection, that he is the truth, he is the life, then you're going to have faith in him that he knows what he's doing in your life. We say it all the time. He's not going to let you drown. He's not going to leave you alone. He's not going to forsake you. Abraham had figured this out because he just gathered the stuff and was going and didn't even question God. God, let us be. Let us be like that. Let us find that place where you are and be close enough to you that when you call on us, that we just go. If you continue to look down through those verses in chapter 22, he gets up, he takes the donkey, he gathers the wood, he heads out, and then he comes to a place where he stops. And he knows that at this point in the journey, it's just between him and God and his son, the sacrifice. At this point in the journey, it's just between Abraham, it's just between God, and it's just between Isaac. That's all there is, right there. So he turns to the servants. You know the story, right? He turns to the servants and says, you've come as far as you can go with us. But from this point on, we have to do this on our own. I want to read verse 6 to you. It says, Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac. And he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, I want you to listen to this morning. He said, Father. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and the wood are here, Isaac said. But where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Where's the sacrifice, Dad? Where? You've got the wood. I've seen this happen before. You've got the wood. You've got the fire. But where is the sacrifice, Dad? Abraham was going to worship. Even though God looked at him and said, I'm going to take the very thing that you love, I'm going to take it away from you. Even though the very thing that you love, you've been waiting on all your life, I'm going to take that and sacrifice from you. And Abraham takes the wood, he takes the fire, and he says, if that's what it takes, I'm going to worship you. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to worship you, God. No matter how high, no matter how low, no matter where we are, no matter what it takes, I'm going to worship you, God. And it proves it right here. Because as Isaac says, I see it all, but I don't see the sacrifice, Dad. Verse 8, Abraham answered, God Himself. God Himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the two of them went on together. At this point, there is no provision seen. It's all on faith, and it's all on worship. There's a lot of times in our life, that we have just to depend upon our faith. I know what the Bible says. I know what God has done for me in the past. And I know if I have faith in Him and I can continue to worship Him, that no matter what happens, He will provide. He'll provide. Over and over and over and over, He will provide. So when they reached the place God had told them about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. His kid at this time is probably freaking out. What are you doing, Dad? I thought you loved. What are you doing? I think Jesus used the words, why have you forsaken me? Dad, what is going on? He bound his son Isaac, and he laid him on the altar on top of the wood, and then he reached out his hand and took his knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham! Abraham! And he replied, here I am. He said, do not lay a hand on the boy. He said, do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. And Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket, he saw a ram. There in the thicket, he saw a ram. And I don't know if you know what that means or not, but it means no longer did he have to sacrifice his son, but there would be another type of bloodshed take place. That ram, that perfect ram that was there, ready for sacrifice. And Abraham would untie his son, and he would go over to that ram that was caught in the thicket, and he would pull that ram back to that place where he was going to sacrifice his son, and he would sacrifice that ram instead. I don't know if you know it or not, but he took your place. Jesus, that is. He took your place. We can't blame it on Adam and Eve, because we know good and we know evil. We can't blame it on our upbringing anymore. that my mom wasn't good enough or my dad wasn't good enough. We can't blame it on, I just fell into the wrong crowd. And so I started doing things that maybe wasn't the best in the world, you know, and we can't blame it on, we don't have time anymore. Because each and every one of us are responsible for our own actions today. Nobody made me do anything. Nobody made Adam and Eve take of that tree. They were talked into it, but nobody made them do it. And nobody makes us sin either. We choose it on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a yearly basis, or hopefully not at all, but when it happens, we choose to do it. I think it's coming to the place in our life like Abraham where when God speaks to us, we have enough faith once again to recognize that God's speaking. No matter what happens, situations, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be solid in God. I'm going to have some faith in Him so that I'm not thrown around like I have been in the past. And I'm going to worship Him no matter what. What means so much to you today? Is it your son or is it your daughter? Is it your spouse or the relationship that you might be in? Is it a sport or is it a hobby? What happens when God says, I want you to love me more than anything else in this world? And that is taken away. And that's gone. Do you still love God? Do you still worship Him? Do you still continue on? Or you just say, forget you, God? Abraham had figured it out. He said, I'm going to have faith in you, God. Here I am. I'm going to worship you, God. And here's my son. And I know if it's life, or even if I sacrifice Isaac and it's death, it's still okay. I think when Abraham pulled his knife back and he was going to look at his son square in the eyes and he was going to do what God had asked him to do, to sacrifice the blood, I think Abraham would have came down with that knife and would have done what God had asked. I want you to listen this morning. God is not asking that of you. He's not. He's not asking you to take the very thing that you love and to lay it on the altar and just sacrifice it. Because He said that He sent an offering to us. His name is Jesus, and He took your place. You know that this morning, right? You know that this morning. He said, I don't want you to have to sacrifice anymore. I don't want you to have to struggle. I don't want you to have to worry. This is God. He says, I don't want you to have to be separated from me anymore. I'd rather it be back in the garden like it was originally. So what He does is He says, I send my son as a final sacrifice. He took my place. I've never hung on a cross. I've never had nails beaten into my hands. I've never had Roman soldiers take and beat me. I've never had to suffer like I would have if Jesus had not come into this world and proved that you can live this life without doing wrong. He took your place today. He took your place and your place and your place. He took your place and your place on that cross. He said, you don't have to sacrifice your body. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. John 11, 25 and 26. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? Because of the sacrifice God made in sending His Son, now, your life can be restored. Now you can talk directly to the Father through the Son. And that relationship can happen once again. There's no severing spot there. The bridge has been built back. And all you have to do today is say, Jesus, since you took my place, I'm gonna start this relationship with God again. No shame, no fear, no condemnation. When God calls on you and He calls out your name, no longer do you have to hide and say, I feel so naked in front of you, God. I feel so unworthy in front of you, God. I don't know if I can be around you, God. When He calls on your name, you can be like Abraham and you can say, here I am, God. And I am here and I believe in you. And I am here and I worship you. And I know that you will provide for me over and over and over again. Because your Son took my place. Where I should have died, where I should have perished, where I should have never seen you again, you made it possible. On this day where you brought your family, on this day where you sat together with friends, I want to ask you the question right before we leave. Do you believe? Like you believe in Him and then you're going to go out and you're just going to continue on in old ways. I don't mean believe and you say, yeah, God's great, and then nothing changes. I'm not saying, do you believe and it's the same old, same old. I'm saying to you, do you believe enough to have faith in Him? Do you believe enough to worship Him? Do you believe enough to know that He will provide for you even though you can't pay the bills this month? Even though your son or your daughter is sick, even though tragedy's taken place, do you believe this morning? Because those things shouldn't affect whether you believe or not. Those are circumstances. I'm asking, do you believe this morning? Biggest step of your life. Why don't you show your friends and your family members around you they're serious, that your life is going to change? I think it was Paul that said, I am the chiefest of sinners. And what that meant was is that I sin as much as anybody does. I've killed Christians. I've done all those things. You know, that's what he's saying. I have done as much wrong as anybody else. I want to stand here this morning and say his same words. I have messed it up. I have not done it right. Me, Chad Bird. I have failed in several areas. I wish I wouldn't have. I wish I could have been perfect. But there was a point in my life where I knew that I had to go, and I just had to say, God, as ugly as it is, here's everything. It's kind of like maybe when you're in a AA meeting and they say, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But that might be true, I don't know. Once a sinner, always a sinner. That's kind of how it is. I'm a sinner. The only difference is He took my place. Now no longer do I have to be accountable for those sins that I've had in the past, but I get a fresh start. So who wants a fresh start this morning? I mean a fresh start, a clean slate. No being ashamed. I'll pray with you in a few seconds in your seat. We'll close our eyes and we'll bow our head and we'll ask that question again. But I think for some it's important that you stand up because you have sinned in the past so much and people know you as that, but they should know you as something different this morning. So let your reputation be changed. Stand up, come down, and tell God this morning, I want to be like you. Change your reputation this morning. Guys, you need to follow these two that are coming, because this is the hardest thing you'll ever do.